Hi there folks, welcome back to my channel, and for this video I'm going to be doing another little book review, and the book that I'm going to be talking about is actually a debut novel, and it was one that one of my friends, my best friend, had actually read about Christmas time. It was a book that somebody had got her as part of Your Book Flood. I know I probably pronounced that wrong, I do apologise, my Icelandic's terrible. And she'd read it and she really enjoyed it. She kind of found the book to be really intriguing and just kind of I don't think she was able to put it down, and she automatically just thought that when I was coming around to my birthday that it was a book that she knew that I needed to read. So I'll start talking about that in a second, because again, my best friend got it right. It is one of those books that I absolutely adored. It was, even when I wasn't reading it, I was constantly thinking about what was going to be happening next. I was constantly kind of asking questions about what was going on, what was happening, why the characters were doing certain things. And it was just a book that very much kind of got your attention and borrowed its way in and just held on for dear life. So before I get on talking about that, if you are enjoying my channel, if you're enjoying my videos, please click on that subscriber button, please click on that notification bell, leave some likes, leave some comments, it's always really appreciated. So back on to the main topic of this video. The book that I'm going to be talking about is called The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey, and I do hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly there. And it's actually based on a Russian folktale that is in English is called The Snow Maiden. And I know that Eowyn Ivey's from Alaska, and that the novel itself is actually set in Alaska. And I think her follow-up novel, I can't remember what it's called, but I know her follow-up novel is also set in Alaska. So I think kind of the landscape in Alaska, with it being her home, with it just kind of being where she grew up, it very much kind of has an effect in her writing. And from just reading The Snow Child, I would probably argue that the landscape and the weather and the environment of Alaska is almost like another character. It's almost as if the weather and the environment and the landscape knows what's going on and almost affects what's going on. It has that it's a kind of almost a kind of magical element to the environment and the setting of the novel, which does very much set in with it being based on a piece of folklore. And it can very much be seen at the start of the novel, where the two main characters, who are Jack and Mabel, are in a very kind of dark place in their lives, and a quite dark place in their relationship as well. That Mabel has lost a baby, and that is very much playing on her mind and very much having a negative effect on her life. And that's kind of part of the reason why they've moved to Alaska in the book. That Mabel is essentially trying to escape from her past. She's trying to escape from what's happened before, and Jack is just wanting to get her happy again, just wants to see her happy. But it's that kind of dark kind of bleakness that is hanging over the couple, and is very much presented within the landscape and the environment and the weather. And it's kind of the coldness that they find within the environment is very much kind of symbolic of where the relationship is at that time. That even though they both love each other dearly, there's like a kind of coldness between the two of them. There's a kind of distance, and it's like a distance that they don't really know how to bridge. And you do see a kind of thawing in that throughout the novel, but it's just really well handled, well written, and it does very much kind of endear you to both the characters. But I think kind of it does get to a point at the start of the book as well that they start seeing a fox on the boundary of their homestead, and it's almost like kind of very emotive and very symbolic. It's the minute you know this fox is there, you know this fox is going to have some sort of effect on what happens later on in the story. I'm not going to say what happens. I'm not going to give away what's going on with the fox, but the fox does play a part in later aspects of the novel. And one thing is about this at the book as well at the start is that the snow's late. Everyone's expecting the snow to come. Everyone's talking about the snow and how it's late and it hasn't come. So that I think that kind of ties in with the fact that there is this element of something kind of overhanging, kind of something's kind of just on the horizon, kind of just threatening to come, threatening to break, and kind of they all know it's there and they're all kind of expect it to happen. And things kind of, I think, start to change because I think it's just before the snows start. A character called Esther is introduced, and she is the mother of the family in a nearby homestead, kind of farmstead, and she is a total opposite of Mabel. She goes around in men's clothes, while Mabel is very much kind of in skirts, dresses, kind of very much in what women at the time would expect to have worn. She has a family of boys. I think a total of four boys in the family. So our homestead's noisy. It's full of life. It's messy. Again, the total opposite of Mabel and Jack's homestead, especially at the start. And Mabel, as a character, very much wants to be in the world that Esther's in. She kind of, it's almost like Esther kind of symbolises everything that Mabel wants and wants to achieve and wants to kind of gain. And it has actually been argued that as a character, Mabel could actually just be a figment, or no, Esther could just be a figment of Mabel's imagination. That Esther's almost this kind of this representation of what Mabel wants to be, and she kind of allows it to materialise in her head. Well, that's one argument for Esther as a character. I do very much think that she is a real character, but then again, there could probably be so many different interpretations and ways of reading the Snow Child, and I think kind of that is a part of the reason why I think this book is so well written. It has so many different aspects and ways of looking at it that two different people could have different interpretations and ways of looking at it, and they've both read the same book, and it's just and it's been written in such a way that, okay, even though that's the case, it's not overly complicated, it's not overly fancy or overly showy, but it still has that kind of element of mystery and an intrigue that kind of does get readers talking. Because I think kind of as I was reading this, it just me and my friend were constantly talking about it and just kind of constantly kind of going, oh, this has happened, oh this has happened, oh, what's going to happen next? And it was just, yeah, it was just one of those kind of books that I did really enjoy, and the fact that my best friend had read it as well just kind of, yeah, kind of gave me a way of kind of, gave me something to talk about it'll give me somebody to talk to in relation to the book. And things really kind of come to head and really start to become mysterious and kind of otherworldly, but in, I think, quite a subtle way. The night that the snow comes, and as Mabel and Jack actually go outside and build a snow child, and it's the next morning Jack realises that the snow child, the kind of thing they built the night before, has been knocked down, it's no longer there. And I think it's a hat and scarf, or is it a hat and mittens, that they put on the snow child have gone. And it's that morning that he sees the young girl running through the tree line. And that's when a lot of the kind of questions happen of like, who is she? Where has she come from? Is she really a kind of a physical representation of Alaska, of the wild, of the cold? Because she is very much described as being looking kind of young but ageless at the same time, that she's young but as old as the mountains. So she has that kind of aspect to her that it's timeless and ageless and otherworldly. She's kind of very, even as she kind of grows up within the book, she does still remain quite kind of childlike in certain ways, very naive, which kind of gives her that kind of, again, another kind of aspect of being otherworldly, not of this world, and kind of almost kind of incorruptible as well. And I did notice when I was reading it, is that the most of the dialogue, when it's between Jack and Mabel, or it's between Jack, Mabel and, let's say, Esther, or one of Esther's kids, it is done in the conventional way, where it's got speech marks denoting where the actual dialogue is. But when Jack and Mabel are talking to the child, there is no speech marks, there is nothing to denote. Well, there's no kind of normal conventions to kind of denote where the dialogue is. It does kind of give it that aspect of their interactions with the child as being different, and I think that's kind of quite a kind of clever use of grammar, quite a clever writer's trick, which does kind of, as a writer, does kind of give you that moment of, oh, this is different, I need to pay attention to this. And I would say that, especially with me having mentioned at the start, that the Snow Child is loosely based on the Russian folktale of the Snow Maiden. The novel The Snow Child does have a very fairy tale feel about it, a very kind of folkloric feel about it, especially the ending. It's one of those kind of endings that is very bittersweet. It's not like with Disney where it's, oh, I was happily ever after and boy meets girl, get married and everyone's in love and everyone's happy. There is happiness there, there is joy, but it is tinged with sadness. There is always, even for whatever people gain, there's always something that's got to be kind of lost. And I kind of do like that aspect to the novel. It does kind of very much kind of give it that sense of the kind of the stories that kind of like, it does kind of give that sense of the stories that the Brothers Grimm would have told. Okay, maybe not as gory in some places, but it does have that aspect of things not always ending as happily as people would want. And it is one of those books that does leave the reader with questions. And I will say that now. If you're going into this book thinking that all of your questions are going to be answered by the end of the book, they're not all going to be answered. There will always be something within this book which will make you think, which will make you question, which will make you wonder. And even after you have finished reading the book, you will be still sitting thinking, but what about this, what about that, why? And I know that some people probably do find that infuriating and frustrating, but I think when it is done well, when it's handled correctly, it can be a real joy. And I do think that in The Snow Child it was handled correctly. And personally, I think that it almost had an aspect of, or kind of reminded me of the ending for The Scots Quair by Lewis Grassic Gibbon, which is a trilogy of 3 novels. And at the end of the novel, it has this ending, or at the end of the trilogy, so at the end of the last book, there's this it has this ending that leaves the reader questioning and wondering and wanting to know more, but you'll never get the answers. And as like with The Snow Child, I found that that ending was just quite very emotive and kept you thinking about the book and kept you wondering, and so it kind of worked its way in to the little nook and crannies and kind of nestled itself there. So I think kind of Snow Child as a book is one that I would definitely recommend, and I very likely will pick up more of Eowyn Ivey's novels at a later date and try and read more of what she's written, because I actually do really like her style. And if her later books are anywhere near as good as The Snow Child, we're in for a treat. So I think that's definitely going to be one of the books that I would recommend from this year. So that's The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey. And yeah, so that's the end of this review. I do hope that you've all enjoyed it and you find The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey intriguing enough to actually go off and get yourself a copy and sit down and read. And so I'm going to wrap this video up just now, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.